right, Honorable Martha Karua, thank you very much for joining us this evening on News Hour. Let's begin the discussion with your initial reaction on what happened last week, the ruling by the 5-judge bench. Was it progressive? Was it retrogressive? And others have also said it's judicial activism. What's your take?
The ruling was very progressive, a landmark ruling that firmly entrenched constitutionalism, the rule of law, and respect for the Constitution by all, from the greatest to the smallest, yes.
Okay. I pick one issue out of the whole judgment that took about 5 hours. And the major problem the judges seem to have had was with who initiated this process. My question is, why does it matter that there was someone who initiated this process?
The judges had more than one issue. But when it comes to who can initiate a popular initiative, they unanimously held that only a citizen, not someone in authority like the president or a member of the executive, because if the executive wishes to amend the Constitution, their window is through Parliament. The Attorney General can table through Parliament whatever amendments the executive wishes to make. The popular initiative is reserved for the citizens, not for those in authority. And that was the issue, one of the issues, many issues that the judges adjudicated on. And this is something we had been saying as Linda Katiba, that by initiating BBI and claiming it was a popular initiative, the executive was actually by stealth taking away the window reserved for the people, for the citizens. And we are glad that the court made that ruling.
Okay. I want to take you on that. And my issue is, you and I, and any other Kenyan for that matter, is it possible that we begin that process? And I'm looking at the process wholesome. I'm looking at collection of views. I'm looking at the civic education that follows it. I'm looking at public participation. Please explain this to me, how an individual or Kenyans as a whole can collectively begin this process without having one singular person who spearheads the process. Because my next question was, is there really a problem with the initiator, or the problem was how it was done?
It's both. The president, as the chief executive of the country, is also mandated by the Constitution to receive the bill when passed and to sign it into law. And the court said there will be conflict of interest if the president is the promoter and at the other end is receiving to either send it to IEBC for the referendum or to sign it if it need not go to the referendum. And yes, it is perfectly possible for a private citizen to initiate the bill, collect the signatures, very much the way Okoa Kenya had done, and the Third Way Alliance, submit the signatures to the IEBC, because when you are a private citizen, it doesn't mean you cannot use your networks, but not government machinery, not government resources. Once the bill passes the IEBC then has the mandate of conducting the civic education. And this civic education, they will be assisted by civil society and many other people. It is perfectly possible for the popular initiative to be properly utilized, not abused by the executive, but utilized by citizens.
Okay, I'm still stuck at that because I'm just wondering, regular mwananchi who would be able to do that. But away from that, assume we have a president who is popularly elected. by the citizens, how else do you deny him the right as a popularly elected president to exercise his power as a regular citizen?
He can't be both president and ordinary citizen for the time that he is serving as president. If he wishes to initiate constitutional amendments, and the executive has the right to do so, then they must follow the parliamentary route. If it is a private citizen, or the day he leaves office and is about to leave office in a year's time, then he can initiate the amendments, not through use of public resource or public machinery. He could use his political party, like Okoa Kenya was mainly spearheaded by the CORD coalition of parties and their friends. So a private citizen is not stopped from seeking networks.
Again, or supposing that the president wanted to make a change that would be supported by the Wanjiku, the citizen, and that change is unpopular with Parliament, and yet one of the areas of doing this is through Parliament. How would he navigate through that?
It is up to him to know how to navigate through Parliament. If he is unable, then probably he would have to wait to exercise that chance as a private citizen. When he is president, his route is Parliament. And remember, for any president, he commands a majority in Parliament. So it's up to him to navigate. He cannot be both president and private citizen for purposes of constitutional amendment.
The line has to be clear.
That was the ruling of the court.
Okay, according to the ruling.
Yes.
The line is clear. Let me take you back 11 years ago, 2010, the constitution changed, and you were right at the center of this. And that document was a result of negotiations from elite politicians. And I'm looking at what we are doing right now, and I'm also thinking this is a product, or probably it would be a product of elite politicians. Why is it that it's different right now?
One, the 2010 Constitution had not passed. We promulgated it in August 2010, and that when it took effect. Number two, it is not true, and you know that the 2010 Constitution is as a result of just elite consensus. The consensus by parliamentarians was the tail end, and it did not change much. What Kenyans agreed upon is what the 2010 Constitution is. And if Kenyans disagreed with what parliamentarians did, and I was one of them in Naivasha, they had to authorize that through a referendum. They could have thrown it out. The endorsement by over 67%, Kenyans embraced this document, which was painstakingly negotiated for close to 3 decades. So it is not right, I repeat, to claim that the 2010 document is an elite negotiation product.
But you're saying it was not a product of give and take because there were negotiating teams on both sides.
Yeah.
It wasn't...
Not on both sides. There were many sides, many interest groups, right from the grassroots, each saying what they wanted. So the minor changes in Naivasha, which were then validated by the people, accommodated by the people through the referendum, does not make it a political elite negotiation. People embraced it. It is their document.
There was no public participation then. At least right now, there's a provision for public participation.
A lot of it.
Yes, there was public participation then. That's what you're telling me.
There was no provision for public participation, but there was so much public participation along the way of constitution making. There was so much civic education for people to understand what the constitution contained. Both those who wanted the constitution and those who were disgruntled with it had a lot of space, enabling environment to take their campaigns around the country. The airwaves were granting equal time to both the no and the yes campaign. People made an informed decision. It wasn't a blindfold like BBI, where people do not even know what is provided. Someone is telling them, money will come to you. They are not telling them this is a consensus document by the political elite to increase the seats at the top. This is mainly a succession politics document. You go ahead and put sweeteners, but it is a glass of milk with a spoon of poison.
Okay. I'll take you back to that document because there was the Bomas document, which was touted, now that you've said there were minor changes. There was a document from Bomas that was touted as Wanjiku-driven, and we know what happened in Naivasha. Some have said it was massacred. And my question still, the people who are responsible for transitioning it from Bomas to Naivasha definitely were elites. I was in Naivasha, and I didn't see Wanjiku, in spite of the fact...
And it was rejected.
Yeah.
It was resoundingly rejected. I campaigned for it. We explained it to the people. As one of the MPs supporting it, people rejected it. And we accepted that. Went back to the drawing board after the 2007 post-election violence. But even before then, through the multi-sectoral forum, we had attempted to brook a consensus, but it was not possible.
All right. I want to ask a question based on the political elites once more. You've spoken about it. The fact that they are the political elite, where is their place in the Constitution if there is a desire? Where is a place in the Constitution that gives them the right as that political elite, or because they're political elites, their voice is definitely muted?
If they are elected, their place will be in Parliament. If they are not, they can start a popular initiative, but they must not ride on public resources. They must not ride with the executive to violate the Constitution. That's all that the court said. Nothing more.
And you believe it's possible without the
So they have space and they know it.
Okay. So you believe
Yes.
there's the ability of this group, without using state machinery, to drive a constitutional process to the point that they hand it over now to the IBC. You believe that's possible in the current Kenya?
Indeed. Indeed. It is possible. And if at all you followed the constitutional review process, it was people-driven. Even when the state did not want it, people were able to meet and drive that agenda.
Let me go to your role now as part of the Linda Katiba. And my question is, do you find anything positive in the bill? Did you see anything positive in the BBI bill?
The process was wrong, and once the process is wrong, I am not a promoter of that bill to start telling you anything about it. The process was wrong. It's a poisoned glass of milk. We have no business taking it.
Talking of the process, I'm talking of the substance. Did you find anything inside that document?
I will not go to the substance. If the process is wrong, it is wrong. Ask the promoters to tell you if there was anything positive. We tried to point out that there are things you can't do. What happened was exactly what used to happen under KANU, where the state would use state machinery, would use the provincial administration. The signatures were coerced. It is a blindfold. People were not being given the documents to read. There was total intolerance. Those with dissenting views were not tolerated. Meetings were broken up for those who were against it. So people didn't have a balanced menu from which to choose from.
Okay.
People were not informed to make, choices knowingly.
Okay. If the process was right, would you find anything good in that document, if the process was right?
It would have to be right first, then I will look into the document. But there were so many wrong things, trying to compromise the judiciary through a government inspector known as ombudsman, returning the imperial president, removing vetting of top officials, state officials by parliament, mixing up roles, usurping the role of IEBC, and delimiting constituencies without people's participation. What I remember of the bill is what was so wrong with it.
Fortunately, you have gone to the substance and left the process now. So I want to ask you one thing. You ran for governor, court issues aside and what happened. The 35%, you don't think it was progressive?
Theft of my votes, you mean?
Yes, whatever it was. The 35%, if you were governor right now...
Nothing stops the government of the day from allocating 35%. The Constitution sets the lower limit. And if you look at today's budget, if the promoters of BBI were serious, and the president was one of them, they would have put 35% in this June's budget. It is not there because this was just a bait to demonstrate goodwill. So even those promises were actually not true. They know it's mission impossible. We are a country that is debt-ridden. We can hardly make ends meet. We are living beyond our means. It is not possible. And that is why in his last year, the president has not been able to expand the county's money to 35. We kept on saying, if indeed you're going to give 35, give it in the June budget. He hasn't.
Yeah, show us you can do it fast before you pass it through the BBI bill. All right, so if you have a government without goodwill that will not put this, like you're saying, nothing stops the government of the day from increasing it to 35% from the 15%. But if you don't have a government of goodwill, it means you have to entrench it in the Constitution so that it becomes a minimum. What's wrong with that?
Nothing wrong, but do it in the proper way. And even before you go to 35, support devolution as is supposed to be in the Constitution. Health is a devolved function, yet the funds meant for health, including the COVID funds, the bulk has been left at the center to be embezzled when the counties are hardly making ends meet on health. The same with agriculture. First, show goodwill of respecting devolution and letting money follow functions before you give us a bait that you're going to add the money. I remember too well how the counties were forced to enter into contracts that are exaggerated for medical equipment. Most of them are not working. So show goodwill first before you tell us that it is for devolution, because it's not believable.
Let me flip the coin. A hypothetical question, Martha. If you were governor and someone told you, I am adding over 20% to your kitty, would you have thought differently?
I would examine who is telling me. As a rational person, you examine and you examine the manner it is done. I would have been asking, like I'm asking, put it in the budget now, and we'll believe you and we'll support. Then we would have sat down to say, because remember, governors sit at the summit with the president. You would be able to say, can we retrace our steps and do this right? Remember, initially, I led NAC Kenya to present to BBI committee, the first instance, and we told them, go tell your appointing authority that one, if this is a national conversation, because at that time it was not a constitutional amendment, if it's a national conversation, expand it to include other people. Even if the president and his BBI brother are chiefs of the largest political formations, that is not the entire country. So we were trying to say, make this process inclusive. But at that time, it wasn't constitutional review. If it was inclusive, then views of those who have kept on saying the process is wrong, like Linda Katiba, would have been accommodated. But the government was tone deaf and didn't hear any dissenting voice or any voice suggesting anything contrary to what they wanted.
Let me try one more time with the substance of the BBI bill, the two-third gender rule. It was supposed to, it was protected.
Are you a promoter? Are you a promoter, may I wonder?
Of the BBI?
Because you seem to be asking me only pro-BBI, not anything to support the Linda Katiba movement.
Actually,
because it's good we know from the outset.
That's where we are, because Linda Katiba, I said as a convener of Linda Katiba, as one of the main people at Linda Katiba, I started by asking if you found anything good in the document. I am not a promoter, I'm a journalist. But let me talk about the two-third, because I know you're passionate about it. I would expect you then
to ask me what was wrong with it. Not asking me what is right with it.
The court has told us everything that was wrong with it.
Yes,
Martha, because the court has told us everything that was wrong with it. Now we are trying to find if there's anything that was right with it.
Which you don't seem to have heard.
I did. Two-third, the last one is on the two-third. This is something that you must, as a lady, you must be passionate about the two-third gender rule. What do you think the fact that the BBI could have protected it through the creation of new positions? Is that another area that you think we were being hoodwinked and it was impossible, looking at the delimitation of the new constituencies also?
I think there was also another sweetener there. Gender parity in the Senate is a good thing. But what about the National Assembly? You remove the 47 seats and you do not give any mechanism on how to make sure that the gender rule is complied with in Parliament, and you are taking members of Parliament to be part of the executive. You are taking the additional 3 top seats to Parliament where you have removed women. I think it was not a good idea at all.
So you think that was also a sweetener. So the recommendation was to abolish the 47, as you've said, women representatives from the National Assembly to be replaced by 2 women and 2 men representing people with disability. A male and female representative and a youth will also be nominated. But most important, if that bill would have passed, Kenyans would have also been required to vote for a senator, a male and a female, in the constitutional move that was aimed at curing these two-thirds. Now, to my last question, looking at the 9-point agenda, and I want to deal with only number 3, that is devolution, divisive elections, and ethnic antagonism, and of course competition in politics. If Martha Karua, a presidential candidate, was to cure these ills, how else would you have done it without promoting or without proposing such amendments? How else is Martha the presidential candidate? How else would you have dealt with this, away from what the executive tried to do?
My position is that the Constitution we have, the 2010 Constitution, has answers for all these things. And that if you want to cure the electoral process, all we have to do is to implement the Constitution fully. We have a new transformative Constitution, yet we behave as though we are in the pre-2010 regime. You go to a court of law, the court will be asking you as a petitioner why you want to scrutinize the documents. Yet the Constitution, for the first time, is talking of verifiable, transparent, accountable. How can you verify, or how can it be accountable if you can't have the documents? Implementing the Constitution means making rules of the court that are in accord with the Constitution. Participation of the people provided by the Constitution means that IEBC cannot sit alone to plan elections. They must sit with stakeholders. They try to do it at the center, where there is a political parties liaison committee, but they don't do it properly. There should be proper engagement at the national level, at the county level, down to the polling station, so that we are able to police each other. Because what fouls our elections is lack of trust. Most of the participants violate the electoral rules. So I am saying the Constitution has everything we need. And remember, BBI did not even attempt to fix electoral justice. They just got consolation prizes for those who will miss the seats. Okay.
My last question for you, it's an unnecessary question, but equally important. Now that you are better placed, would it be different if your political nemesis was not on the other side? Would it have been different to you, or you're sticking to your guns and the fundamentals have to be followed?
Who is my political nemesis?
Kirinyaga Governor Anne Waiguru.
I am not even aware which side she is on. People who flip-flop, you cannot even know where they are. I go with my conviction, and in my 30-plus years in politics, I don't wait to see who is where. I'm guided by my conviction.
As a senior counsel...
So that's a non-issue.
As a senior counsel now, the AG has gone back to court. How do you see this ending? Is it a waste of time?
I should think so.
Okay.
And my position is this. The court was moved by citizens. So the government and all those BBI promoters must know they're not fighting with the court. They're fighting with the people of Kenya. Whether a majority or a minority, any good leader would step back to listen to what the people are saying, to see whether it's something they can take on board. What BBI is telling us is stop bulldozing, respect the Constitution. These are not the days of upende usipende, because these things were said before to the BBI promoters. But they had contempt, not just for the Constitution and the law, but also for the people, and therefore they saw any contribution that negated their wishes as a disturbance. This is what we are being shown by the AG going to court. Why not step back, reflect, and go back to the drawing board?
I promise that was the last question.
A government that fights its citizens never wins. That's my last.
Yes, but you just mentioned something that I forgot to ask you this. Where's the place of the 4 million people who signed? Where's the place of Parliament, the County Assembly? And of course, where is their place now that this is lost?
I think we are conveniently forgetting that the 4 million people, a majority were coerced. It was mainly the youth who were in Kazi Mutaani, who were signing through coercion. It's people seeking services from the administrators. It's people without information and who are being deceived about the true purposes of BBI. Therefore, it is Parliament where people were being coerced, county assemblies where MCAs were induced with car grants, where there was intimidation and even statements being recorded by the Baringo MCAs who voted no. So this was coercion, intimidation, no room for dissent.
Martha Karua, thank you very much. Good to see you as always, and thank you for your insights tonight on NewsHour. Looking forward to speaking to you again on these issues. I know we are heading into an election. Martha Karua, former presidential candidate, NARC Kenya party leader, and of course she's former Gishugu Member of Parliament and a cabinet minister. Well, time now to have my discussion with my other panel. I have